Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this new live session on the Parentally account. My name is Carol. I am the founder of Parentally, and we are a platform dedicated to supporting new and future parents throughout their parenthood journey. And we do so by facilitating access to professional support, community support, and informational support. If you do not follow us yet, please do so, follow and subscribe. And today we are going to talk about making informed decisions during labor and childbirth using B.R.A.I.N.S, and we are going to explain what this is. But I'm very happy to have our guest today, Catharina Ooijens, to talk about this topic and share a bit of her expertise. Catharina, thank you so much for joining us and doing this live with us. Shall we start with... with pleasure, my great pleasure. Shall we start with an introduction? Would you like to start by introducing yourself, telling us who you are, what you do, and your background?
Okay. Well, so as Carol had said, my name is Catharina Ooijens, and I am a doula for the last 15 years. And I worked in the medical academy in a hospital here in Amsterdam, the UMC, which it is right now. And I started the first research on doulas in hospitals, clinical doulas in hospitals. And that was basically because of trauma. I mean, I'm a daughter of a traumatized mother who had a traumatized birth, and my sister, who was born 15 months later, has been being pregnant from a mother with extreme fear of birth. So, and that had a pretty deep impact in our lives because we know right now that a positive birth experience is the kickstart for good parenting. You know, it's really the kickstart. And if a child is not bonding well with the mother, you'll get all kinds of psychological and cognitional problems later in life. So that's my impetus to become a doula, to serve women and to make it better for women, was from that my own birth. And so the implementation of the research has been accepted by the UMC, and so they gave me a job, a function on the payroll. I was paid by the AIMS. I was just normal getting a salary, and I became part of the birth team. So now I'm pensionate, semi-pensionate, as they say, because I think I like to work just like my grandmother till she's 86. Because I see myself working I like. And I also see that, you know, sharing knowledge as an elder woman with younger women in an exchange. I mean, younger women can also share a lot of knowledge with me. I think that's very important to mentor each other in life. So I started my own business, Mama Bevalt Goed, and I still guide women during pregnancy and labor, and I will do so till I stop. Yeah. So that's the background I've been working with, but with a lot with traumatized women, women with sexual abuse in their background, which is one at every 5 women had some kind of sexual abuse in their lives.
That's huge.
So it's very common, you know, and it has an effect on the way we experience birth, of course. So that's my background.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this, and we are very lucky and grateful to have you share about your experience and also this topic of B.R.A.I.N.S with us. So B.R.A.I.N.S, what does it mean actually? It's an acronym, and I think let's start with this. What does B.R.A.I.N.S stand for?
Yeah, it is an acronym, and it's not only during pregnancy and birth. You should really see it as a tool that also might help you with conception.
Okay.
No, I mean, that is a tool, or postpartum after birth, but also in parenting, because once you have a child, the child also needs vaccinations, and the child has to go to schools. And so you have to help to raise those questions you want to know. For example, B.R.A.I.N.S in general stands for what are the benefits of a certain path to choose. What kind of decisions are we making on those benefits? But also, what are the risks? What are the risks involved of my choices? Are there any alternatives? Can I choose something else? Is there another option? Intuition, what does my own gut tells me? You know, if you are a woman with a low risk pregnancy and your pregnancy is going well, what is your gut telling you if they start to introduce induction between 41 and 42 weeks, for example? What if we do nothing? So the N is for nothing, you know, or wait it out. And then the S is generally stands for a standstill. You know, what if I just kind of nothing is also part of it because you have different formats, brains or brain. And of course, it is related to our own brain. That's the beautiful thing of the acronym, is that we can really raise questions and do research, but also get a good conversation with your birth worker or your midwife or your gynecologist. So all of that will help you to be better informed or making informed choices.
Why is it important to make informed decisions? How?
Well, you know, for me, you have one body
Yeah.
and you have to deal with that for the rest of your life. So it is your temple. You have to be very concerned about your own house because if you would like to become old healthy, you also need to participate in your health. And that starts before pregnancy, or just even actually they should teach you on basic schools about anatomy of the body. I mean, where's the location of all your organs? How does the body function? What kind of food do you need? What makes you healthy? What makes you sick? All of that is not being done. So we have given away authority, I think, towards professionals. They know, I don't. And I think now we're living in a time where we really have to understand that if you make a mistake, Carol, I'm the one who has to carry the mistake. I'm the one who may be damaged. I might be the one who might suffer. So I would like to participate in my own health. I would like to ask the right questions before we do something that I might harm me or my baby. So those are the things that are important. You are a response-able person. That's what adultery means, or not adultery, that's not the right
No.
word, but to, but to, if you're grown-up human being, you have the ability to have a response ability. So you respond to what is being given to you. You think about it. Are these beneficial? Are there risk involved? I mean, if I go to the dentist, I mean, I would like to know what kind of anesthesia I get. What's in it? What does it do to my body? Can I deal with it? So, you know, you just you can use it in all kinds of platforms in your life. But
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, but just during pregnancy, the realization, this is my child, this is my body, I have to deal with it, and I need to have a positive birth experience. That's what I'm aiming for. And how can I make it as positive as possible in the circumstances that you have to deal with within your pregnancy? Because that is sometimes unforeseen. You might develop diabetes, pregnancy-related diabetes, or pregnancy-related high blood pressure. This is something you can sometimes, that's beyond your guilt, so to speak, or you're beyond your responsibility. That might be generational in your background that, you know, you have to deal with. But then still you can ask the right questions because maybe there's an alternative of how to approach it.
Yeah, that's so can you use brains basically as a method? Like every time you have to make a decision, you can talk with your provider about the benefits, the risk, I forgot the advantages, the
Alternative,
alternatives. Yes,
intuition, what's
yes.
your gut feeling? Is it a emergency, or
Mm-hmm,
can I say, you know what, I want to sleep about it a
mm-hmm,
night. I need to talk to my husband. I want to do some research. I don't get enough information right now. I feel pushed. Is it necessary? Can I think about it? Come back to you, can email you on it. Do we have some more time? Because you see, you have to understand, a doctor has a consultation. He has 10 to 15 minutes. You know, your normal care has to be
mm-hmm,
done. You know, you have to, your blood pressure, etc., etc. So there's not a lot of space sometimes for deeper questions. So if you want to use brains, I would suggest, as a pregnant woman, if you have questions, maybe ask them already, can you give me your email so I can
mm-hmm,
ask you some questions? Because I understand that maybe there's no time, not enough time for
mm-hmm,
me to really in depth get my answers.
mm-hmm,
So this is
mm-hmm. Yes.
something you could do.
Yes, that is a great advice in pregnancy to already talk with your provider and ask all your questions. And I guess it also applies to the birth plan. Can we talk a bit about how a birth plan can help to prepare for the
Well,
childbirth?
it, yeah, well, it is something, yeah, if you have for example, a doula
Mhm,
or a midwife, I mean, first of all, you have to understand what kind of time do we have
mhm,
to relate on a deeper level. So if you have a low risk pregnancy, I mean, you have to see it in different ways. You have either a low risk pregnancy, you're under the care of a midwife in the
mhm,
Netherlands, and you don't need a gynecologist.
mhm,
But if you have a high risk pregnancy, due to, say, pregnancy-induced blood pressure, high blood pressure, or diabetes, then you necessarily get into protocols.
mhm,
You know, and the protocol would then suggest to, for example, be induced by 38 weeks, you know, for example, with diabetes. Now, that could be, I mean, that would be the decision of a doctor.
mhm,
I would say, okay, we are going to induce you with 38 weeks. Now, the moment somebody says we are going, then you know you can start raising questions. You can say, but wait a minute, you know, my diabetes is completely under control. It's not, you know, going like this. So it all depends on the situation in that particular moment where the conversation can be opened and say, okay, what are the benefits of being induced right
mhm,
now? But what is the alternative? Can I wait? I would like to wait till 40 weeks at least. Because some children get born, they're born earlier, you know,
yes.
before 40 weeks. So it's always a matter of, and getting also the under, but what are the risks if I'm going to be induced right now?
Mhm,
What are the risks for me, but also for my baby? And then you can, but how is induction
mhm,
works? I mean, if you are a woman, for example, in her background with a very negative sexual experience, and you know your whole being is not prepared for vaginal exams or a
mhm,
speculum exam, that is also something you need to take in consideration when you go into an
mhm,
induction. Then you need to talk to your health caregiver about this and say, hey, listen, you know, this is something I really dread or I have a great fear for.
mhm,
So maybe there's another way. Maybe you have a balloon catheter, or maybe you can use misoprostol, which is another. It's different invasive, you know. So you have to work with knowledge and ask the right questions.
mhm,
Is there an alternative? You know, can we wait?
mhm.
You know, can we come to a mutual decision on this?
Yes, mutual. I think that's a key word. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we most of us we have this kind of good girl attitude, like towards authority. Like if you are the healthcare provider, if you are the doctor, then I have full trust in you. I think sometimes it can maybe feel a bit courageous, to ask questions and, say, okay, you're telling me I need to do this, and then I have questions. It's not always easy.
No,
And,
no,
I think, and also what
of course.
happens, what happens if, the person in front of you is not really, working with you? It's difficult.
Well, yes, but if you really learn that you are responsible for yourself always first.
Mm,
First, you first, yeah? They say that in every situation. It's like and of course, I mean, I'm an older woman, so I also had to learn to be more assertive,
mhm,
for example. Trust needs to be earned, for example. If you ask your healthcare giver a question and he or she is unkind, you have to take note. That's an intuitive feeling. Say, hey,
mhm,
wait a minute, I'm a patient, I am a pregnant woman. I want my questions asked. And then you just go into it like you just address it. You say, I'm a pregnant woman. I need my questions asked. The problem of most women is they think they're dumb or, they don't have the medical background. So they think it might be a stupid question, but it never is. You just need to be polite in the sense that you say, do you have time right now for me to get the answers because I have a lot of questions? And if you don't have time, how can we make the time? Because I like to have them answered. Can we have a double consultation next time, for
mhm,
example? So it's all a matter of understanding that you are also a grown human being. You're not a child anymore.
mhm. Yes,
you
that's true.
know and it has nothing to do with being a good girl or bad.
Yes.
That's an old repressive way of thinking about
Mhm,
yourself. But we're all grown women. You have a pregnancy, you're a grown woman, and you're entitled to have your questions answered.
mhm,
Like you're entitled to your partner to ask questions and say, hey, why are we doing this?
mhm,
Or are we going the right way? Or entitled to your girlfriends also. But this is a normal, civilized world we live in. And so we're entitled. But you
mhm.
don't have to be unfriendly or you
Sure.
don't have to be aggressive. You are entitled. This is something you need to really get into your own being. You have to love yourself completely and say, I'm entitled because it's my body and I don't want to be damaged. I need to have the right answers. I need to have the trust in you. You need to be trustworthy.
Mhm. This is so true.
And so, from that perspective, if you take it really from that perspective, then you can never go wrong. There's
Mhm,
no right nor wrong. This is just a normal, civilized way of dealing with health, with trying to prevent damage or suffering if it's not necessary. And you need to know exactly what is going to happen to your body, what can you expect. And you also are allowed to follow your own instinct. What
mhm.
I just see is that women find it very difficult to take responsibility for the choices you make. You
Because
have to
yeah,
take responsibility.
yes, that's true. But also you feel like sometimes you don't know better. You don't know. There are things you just don't know. So,
I know it's a learning curve. It's a life journey.
mhm,
Where we as women are all on a journey. Whether you are become a mother of one or two, or I just got a dog, and he's 8 months old, and gee, that's a lot of work suddenly in my life, and a lot of loss of freedom. But it's my responsibility because I said yes.
mhm,
But if it doesn't work, I might change my mind also.
mhm,
You see, if it really doesn't work and I have given everything I've given into it, then I also have to accept that. So it's a journey of a woman. I mean, that's why I like to work with women in generally, because we're all on a journey and we're all been good girls and we all not been raised I think I can say that in general in a proper way, because we've always had authority outside of us, but we have authority over ourselves, over our own lives. We are the ones who are navigating this journey into life.
Mm-hmm.
It's our life. You only have one life. You need to be very proud and very careful with it, and very protective of it too.
Mm-hmm.
And as a mother, you also have to be very protective of your child, because that's been also your duty as a mother. That's
Absolutely.
what the mother is. The mother is the protector.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's a beautiful power. Yeah, it's a
It is.
beautiful thing, and motherhood is beautiful.
It is. You were talking about, so the title of this session was about using brains during labor and childbirth. And we also
Yeah,
talked about how important it can be during pregnancy also to make informed
yeah,
decisions. But I wanted to, the contexts are not the same, because in pregnancy you have your appointment and you're all calm and, you have time. In labor and childbirth, it can be a lot more hectic.
yeah.
And how in your experience, how does it work using brains when let's take an example. You are
Mhm.
in labor and I don't know, you are, I don't know, at 3 centimeters dilation and it's not progressing, and then your provider comes to you and say, we're gonna do something. And then you ask to wait, you use brains, but then they come back again 2 hours later. And then, I take this example because it's my own. And, I dared ask question once, but
Yeah.
not twice, and I,
No.
I feel like it's, when you ask questions, for me, in my own experience, it's also kind of a bit challenging, the person you are working with. So, I mean, I did not dare. That's the thing.
Well, that's a beautiful acknowledgement. So that's part of your
Hmm.
journey. It's not for nothing you have set up this business about parentally. It comes from somewhere. Like I became a doula, and also probably a clinical
Hmm.
doula, because I worked with my own trauma and the trauma of my mother and my grandmother. So that gave me the perspective that lots of women don't dare to speak up for themselves, for
Hmm.
example. This is something you have to learn in life. And what would be good is you have your partner as your confidant.
Hmm.
Because this is also something that needs to be talked through in your pregnancy. You need to have a real open conversation with your partner. It's like, because as a woman, once you are in labor, you become extremely vulnerable. First of all, if you're in labor, your oxytocin and your endorphin
Hmm.
starting to play part of it. So you get kind of high. You're very aware, but also not your cognitive notion. It doesn't work so good anymore.
Hmm.
Um, so the inclination of doing something and not daring to stand for yourself takes courage. So if you have a right partner, but therefore you need to have a birth plan.
Hmm.
And the birth plan is not a plan, because a birth you
Yes,
cannot
of
plan.
course.
Everything, you don't know how it goes. And you are the whole human being. You take your past also into the birthing room. It's not just giving labor.
Hmm.
It is the emotions around labor. You will experience maybe moments in your life that were difficult, because labor has sometimes like a funnel moment where it becomes very extremely difficult. It's like, oh my God, I cannot do this. And, everything gets into contraction and you want to stop it. But you have to move through labor. That's the beauty of it. So you need people around you who also support you
Hmm.
emotionally, because you might get stuck at certain moments.
Hmm.
And labor is not something you do by yourself, completely alone. You need the right people around you in order to support you and to provide that loving care. So that's why the birth plan is important, that your partner knows exactly who you are, your wishes, but also that you speak your birth plan with the healthcare provider you are connected with,
Mm-hmm.
and say, these are the concerns I have. These are the interventions I feel afraid for,
Mm-hmm.
or I fear, or I don't want to have my membranes broken by 3 centimeters because you know your contractions are going to become more intense, and therefore you asked for pain medication
Mm-hmm.
easier, and that might result in
Mm-hmm.
a C-section or a vacuum extraction. So if you know what
Yes.
happens in labor, the stages. But this is the thing, we don't talk openly about labor.
Mm-hmm.
Labor is a difficult thing to do, and also not, you see, because the body really knows what to do. But you have your emotions and your feelings, and sometimes, yeah, you do stagnate for a while. And then maybe you need a partner who looks you in the eyes and says, sweetheart, what's going on? And then maybe you will say, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid to go on. I don't know how to move on. And that might propel a deeper moment in your life where you would say, I cannot move on. I'm afraid to move on. You see, so all these layers are introduced in the birthing room. That's why it's so important to really talk deeply
Mm-hmm.
in pregnancy of expectations,
Mm-hmm.
reality checks, you know. And then you get to the point where you say, okay, I'm curious. I'm going to test my strengths and my weaknesses. And I need a good support team around me to be able to go through it,
Mm-hmm.
to move through it. And you also can be speaking openly with your healthcare given about this. Like, hey, I'm afraid for an episiotomy,
Mm-hmm.
for example, which is a cut in the vagina.
Yes.
Or I'm afraid for a vacuum extraction. How would you help me with this? How can you guide me through this?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you would say, I cannot deal with hands-on. I don't want you to touch me. And I want you to really listen to me because that's important. And I will ask for help if I need to. So labor is something that really needs to be spoken of in a very open manner among women, because we're hiding it
Mm-hmm.
from each other.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. That's very true.
And
I.
B.R.A.I.N.S is a tool that adds, for your own understanding during pregnancy. But in labor, you already need to know interventions and why. Why? Because there are only a few interventions during
Mm-hmm.
labor, not a lot, maybe 5. And those interventions, if you know why and how they could apply to you,
Mm-hmm.
and when and how, and the moments of fear that it might call up, then you have an open discussion with also your healthcare givers, and then everybody is suddenly on board.
Mm-hmm.
It's a funny thing that because healthcare providers also want the best for you.
Yes. Of course.
And
Of course.
but if we talk about like for percentages, if you want to know what the risk is, it's also good to know that a healthcare provider finds 0.5% a risk. But for you, it might not feel like a risk. You might say, well, I can deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
Life is a risk. If I step out of the door, I mean, a truck can hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Life is the risk. So you need to feel true and get a deeper understanding. I would say right now for the women who are listening, evidencebirth.com,
Mm-hmm.
evidencebasedbirth.com, you get a
Yes.
lot of good information. So this is also, you prepare yourself before you say, I would like to, I have questions about this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I need to I need to talk this through with my healthcare provider.
There are things you can talk with your healthcare provider in pregnancy. Let's say you talk with your midwife, and let's say you prepare your birth plan and you discuss your birth plan with your midwife. I have actually a practical question about the birth plan, but just after I will ask it.
Okay.
then what if, you prepare for a home birth, and then you are, transferred to the hospital, and then you still have your birth plan, but then what happens, like, if it's not your, original team who is,
True.
going to be with you, can you still, discuss your birth plan when you arrive, or?
That's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
You see, that is because I had a similar situation 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
ago where we started have birth at home, which was a gorgeous birth. She had quite a history, and with also psychological help beforehand, before her pregnancy. Um, so her birth was very much like hands off.
Mm-hmm.
She needed silence and quiet, and she really needed the support that we listened to her. If she said
Mm-hmm.
no, okay, we don't. This is your boundary. And but then the placenta wouldn't come, so
Mm-hmm.
she had to be transferred to the hospital. And then you get into a different modus because
Yes.
now you have blood loss. There's a fluxus. So now, you have to have the basic parameters need to be checked. And that is all medical. And
Mm-hmm.
then suddenly, yeah, then you have to
Yes.
surrender. There's a moment of surrender also in
Yes.
certain situations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I see.
So you need to, it's preparation, a lot of good preparation with, people who have good understanding and healthy
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. Talk to your healthcare provider, your midwife, or your gynecologist. Just talk about your fears and and you know your rights,
Mm-hmm.
because nobody can do anything if you don't give them consent. No is no. If you say no, I don't want an episiotomy, then it would behoove you to really understand what pushing is and how to do that. That's part of that. You also need to know that if your child uh, becomes in difficulties, has difficulties, or maybe, you might tear to a point where you have later lots of problems. So you need to choose your battles also.
Mm-hmm.
And that in constant feeling with your healthcare provider or your midwife or your gynecologist, and say, listen, I don't mind, but I need to be stitched very well. So there's this whole communication participation
Mm-hmm.
that is so important from all parties.
Yes.
Because I cannot read your mind as a pregnant. I may look in your eyes and see fear, but I might not have the time to explore your fear as a healthcare provider,
Mm-hmm.
because I have another 10 people sitting in my waiting room. And the moment I start to explore your fear, tears might come. And then we are an hour further in the consultation. So you need to share your fears. You have the responsibility to say, I'm very afraid for this or that, and help me to go through it. Or is there somebody on the floor that can help me to go move through the fear? Or talk to your partner about your fear, because a lot of women don't talk to their partners openly about their fears also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the partners also talk to the women about their fears. So there's a big lack of communication, I find.
Mm-hmm.
Honest, open communication.
Mm. Communication is key in everything. But I think you touched on is that the medical team is here to assist and to help and to make sure everything, goes well.
Yeah.
And it's not about, this life is not about, challenging or, going against what the healthcare providers are saying, but just more like working together and understanding.
Yeah,
I think that's the.
and we're human, Carol? I mean, I had a birth a while ago where a midwife would come in the room that was in the hospital, and she had a face like this, and I thought, oh no, oh, she looks like she doesn't want to like to work today. And I really felt, but somehow I stepped over my own ego and my judgment, And I walked with her outside and I said, can I talk to you for a moment? Because this patient is coming from Iran and she went through a lot of trauma in her life. So she needs to be really treated carefully and with care and love. And I said, how are you? And she said, oh my God, don't talk to me. My teeth hurt. I had it pulled this morning. So she shared because I asked and I saw her bitterness in her face or she was not in a good mood, but it had nothing to do with
Mm-hmm.
us. She was in pain. So by just saying, oh my God, sorry to hear, I'm here too as a doula. I'm an experienced doula, so we will do it all together. That changed the whole mood. So don't judge a book by its cover, I would say also.
Mm-hmm.
Just go in depth and say what's happening to you, or I see you're not in a good mood today, or, it's an exchange again.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I want to go back to, because I had a question about the birth
Yeah.
plan, and I'm sure you have seen many many birth
Yeah.
plans. What is a good? I mean, I say this like this: a good birth plan. Like,
What I always used to do within the consultations of women, I first need to understand who you are.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not just about your pregnancy. I need to know who you are. I need a little bit of your background. I need to know, for example, how did your mother give birth? I mean, if your mother gave birth to you via a C-section, there is nothing in your DNA that understands a normal birth.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to talk about this. Did you ever talk to your mother about your own birth and how your mother experienced? So you need to understand, you need to know the background of a woman if she had very traumatic experiences in her life, her vision on birth, how she likes to, how she sees it. Is it natural,
Mm-hmm.
or is she coming from a country where C-sections are very normal?
Mm-hmm.
What does she want really? This is something you need to explore. Then you need to also know her partner, because sometimes you see a partner who's very fearful of birth,
Mm-hmm.
and then you ask him a question, and he says, "Well, I have been born with forceps." Now I understand why you're so afraid. Yeah, so that needs to be explored. Then you need to write down in a few words what your expectations are of that birth and who you are as a person. For example, I cannot deal with touch, or I'm very afraid for an episiotomy, or I don't think I can push, or I had very intense problems in my life. So you need to communicate very clear and not overextensive with me. So explain yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first paragraph should be like that. And then you can start your wishes and your needs. You if you need a normal natural birth, and you want hands off, and you
Mm-hmm.
want a lotus in the end, you want first the placenta to be born and then the umbilical cord be cut. Those are the wishes you have. And then you will understand also that if anything changes, that, for example, I get a fluxus and a delayed umbilical cord clamping is not capable,
Mm-hmm.
then I understand why. And then let's discuss it afterwards, what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So your birth plan needs to be very clear in the
Okay.
sense of your needs and your wishes, but also your fears. Because some women write birth plans of 18 pages.
Mm-hmm.
They have so
It's a
much
lot.
fear. That's a lot, but there's also so little trust. Well, if you say, I have little trust in hospital care because my mother's girlfriend died because of a medical mistake, and that kind of um, took my trust away.
Yeah.
That's a clear communication. Now we know that you're not apprehensive because you don't like us, because you had a trauma experience by somebody else. I think if we start doing that, we could improve healthcare for all of us.
Absolutely. I totally agree. But also, I think you told me this story. Sometimes, the people you have in front of you are just not willing to
Yeah,
collaborate.
absolutely. Sometimes you have, like my last birth, I had a nurse. She thought she thought she owned dictatorship. It was like really not cool. It was very unkind, very disrespectful. And so I need to write her a letter. I need to communicate what I think about it. And in the hope they will learn and see it as something to take to heart. I mean, it's the same if your partner is having a big mouth to you, you say, "Hey, listen, boy, we need to talk about this. I don't tolerate this attitude. We need to talk about this." So, but that's also responsibility, to take on, to say, "Hey, I need to discuss this." And like I said, the woman with the toothache, the midwife with the toothache, she came in with a long face, and I thought she had a bad day and she didn't want to go to work. She didn't like her work. But it turned out it was just a toothache.
Yes.
But she was not saying, "Guys, I have such a toothache. I don't want to work actually, but I have to." She will not do that. So sometimes you can reach out and just address something you see.
Yeah, we are all humans after all.
Sometimes you have a true asshole on your
That's
back.
true.
Let
this be the last word.
Yes, that's true too. Somebody who's just is in a power game. I don't know.
Yeah.
You have those people.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we're nearing the end of this live, unfortunately. But would you like to end with maybe a golden advice or something you would like to share? I know you have already shared a lot of extremely valuable things, but one last thing.
I think the most important thing for women I've learned in my life is truly take responsibility for my own body, my mind, my actions, my communication, and I had to learn this. It's not something that comes easy. But once you make the decision to give the best of yourself and become the best you can be, that is the start where everything changes. And then everybody else also around you, you are better able to negotiate, but also to see whether there's true willingness or it's human incapacity. You just have a different approach to life. You don't have to be the victim. Don't become a victim. Because you're part of that. You don't have to be a victim. I think that it would be my advice. Yeah.
And that's a golden advice. Thank you
As a
so much.
golden
That's a great advice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have to end this session, but thank you so much, Catharina, for doing this. It's been extremely valuable and interesting, and I hope all the women who watch this will be able to use this in pregnancy, but also during childbirth, and I think also in our life in general, just simply.
In our life in general.
Yes.
We are on a journey.
Absolutely.
Motherhood is part of it.
And thank you everyone for watching this live. It's been recorded, so I will share it on the feed shortly. But yes, thank you everyone for following us. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you soon on a new live. Thank you so much, Catharina.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.